AFR Talk. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Free for All Friday on Focal Point. Brian Fisher is my name, 888-589-8840. Chatting with Luciano before the break about the immigration issue. And Luciano, you're Hispanic. And I want to give you an opportunity to refresh what you said about your view on illegal immigration. You're speaking as a Hispanic, and you're not a fan of amnesty legislation. Tell us why.
Let me just tell you this. I joined the military not to protect illegals. My father and mother come from a Spanish country, and I'm opposed. I've been fighting this illegal immigration for about 25 years since I left California. I'm in Pennsylvania. This toxic, extremely toxic twilight zone, we're going down like the Titanic immigration bill. It's going to destroy America. I have no problem being called traitor and being called hypocrite and telling me that I need to join with the Latinos because I'm Latino. No, I'm a Hispanic. That's all by birth. But I identify as a Christian, evangelical, conservative. And I don't care plum penny whether you're Mexican or Japanese or Korean. I just care if you're a good person, Judeo-Christian follower, if you're a good brother, not because you're Mexican. This bill is going to destroy America. The politicians are traitors. These politicians are demonic in their thoughts about they're going to accept 45 million people. And then in Mexico, when they go to Mexico, they're advertising it. They're coming by droves. And the Latinos over there, they're loving it because the government of Mexico is laughing at our country. We hold $17 trillion in debt. And I don't know, the question to you is, if by chance the good Lord allows this catastrophe to materialize and we become overwhelmed by 45 million illegals in the next 10 to 20 years with the chain migration, how should a Christian, evangelical Christian, view this? Is it God's will? Is it the stupidity and naiveness and foolishness of these educated, naive, foolish politicians? What is the attitude a person like me and others should walk the streets of whatever streets if by chance this bill takes effect, please?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, Lucian, and I really appreciate you calling, speaking as a Hispanic and as Hispanic evangelical. A Christian first, that's Luciano. He identifies as a Christian first, as we all should, as we all must. That's a more profound identity than any national identity, any ethnic identity. And Luciano, not happy with the fact that people are playing the race card on him. They want to put pressure on him to support a policy that he knows is bad for this country just because of his ethnic background. He said, no, I'm a Christian first. We know what the scriptures teach. Scriptures advocate the rule of law. Scriptures urge people to obey the law, to follow the law, to arrange themselves under the law, to make responsible, informed, mature decisions. And he's concerned, as we all are, that this is going to destroy this country. And Luciano talking about the fact that people in Mexico, they advertise access to these benefits up here. We've got our own government putting ads on soap operas. You've heard about this. We talked about it some time ago. But our own government is running ads in Spanish on Mexican soap operas telling them about food stamps and telling Mexicans they don't need to worry about whether they're here illegally or not. We're not going to stop you from getting food stamps. We're not going to stop you from getting welfare benefits. Don't let the fact that you've broken our law, that you're a criminal trespasser, don't let that stop you from coming up here, crossing our border, and taking advantage of all the free stuff that you can get here. And I'll tell you what I think, Luciano. I think our responsibility is to resist this. It's to fight this. We turned back this farm bill. Just ordinary Americans and the House defeated this farm bill. It's just a bloated thing. It had subsidies in there for sushi rice, monstrous subsidies in there for sugar. What you're paying for sugar, ladies and gentlemen, is several times what you ought to be paying for sugar. That's all propped up. You're paying once in taxes to send these subsidies to sugar farmers, and then you're paying a second time to go buy the sugar at these highly inflated prices. Now, I know sugar farmers from Idaho. That was a major industry in the state of Idaho. I appreciate that. I understand that. I'm just saying those kind of subsidies are just flat wrong. This is an issue for the market to decide. So anyway, the House voted down that bloated agriculture bill because they heard from so many people. They heard from so many ordinary Americans. And so I think it's possible that something similar can happen with this immigration bill. this wouldn't be a bad time to call your senator. They're not going to vote on this today. I mean, it's going to be voted on probably next week. They're going to try to get this done before July 4, but call your senator. The number is 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121, and urge your senator to vote against this amnesty bill. Urge them to vote against this comprehensive immigration reform bill. Insist that they do it. Be firm. You don't want to be mean. I don't want you yelling at anybody on the phone, but you make it very, very clear that you will be extremely unhappy with your senator, both of them, if they vote for this bill. So things can happen. I mean, it's not a completely done deal, even in the Senate. I mean, originally they were saying, look, we've got 70 votes. This thing is going to pass with 70 votes. Now, the latest head count I read this morning is maybe they got 58 votes in the bank. So they were telling us before, slam dunk, 70 votes. Now it's down to 58 votes. So who knows what can happen between now if the American people make their voices heard. And Luciano, I think what happens if this monstrosity goes into effect, I think Luciano's right. It's the end of America as we know it. It's the end of any prospect that we're going to be a constitutional republic. It will be the end of the possibility that a conservative party, a party with foundational American principles that you and I share, it'd be the end of any possibility that conservatives could ever win national elected office again. That's gone. That's out the window. Permanent majority. That's why I call it the Marco Rubio permanent Democratic majority amnesty bill. That's what it is. And for a Republican, I mean, set aside everything else. Set aside everything else, whether it's right or wrong. It's suicidal for Republicans to support this bill. I think it's wrong, plus it's suicidal for Republicans to do this. And if it happens, if it goes into, Luciano, this will be God's will. Because God gives us what we insist on having. He says, you want it, you can have it. I've tried to counsel you. I've tried to resist you. I've raised up voices to expose the problems with this course that you're heading on. But in the end, God says to us, look, I'm going to let you do what you insist on doing. You're going to have to pay a bitter price for it. You can do it, but the way I display my wrath, we see that over and over again in Romans chapter 1. How does, Paul says in Romans 1:18, the wrath of God is manifested against men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Well, how does he do it? He gave them over to their lusts. He gave them over to unnatural desires. He gave them over to a reprobate mind. He just lets us have what we insist on having. Life, culture falls apart, and that's how we experience the wrath and the discipline of God. Anyway, last word, Luciano, before I let you go.
I want to thank you for your insight, and we must be courageous. Even though we will be attacked, we must continue on, regardless of what they say about us. We must live by the word of the Lord Jesus Christ and not care what the earthly world thinks about us.
Amen,
Thank
brother.
you, brother.
All right. Thank you, Luciano. Appreciate that. That's the spirit of Nehemiah right there, isn't it? He said, I've gotten pressured, I've gotten jeered, I've gotten ridiculed, people have gotten in my face, they've gotten angry, and he's just persisting. He knows what the truth is, just like Nehemiah. He's not going to get diverted from what he knows is the path of truth. All right, great call, Luciano. Thank you so much for that. Let's go to John, Lottie, Florida. John, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, grace, peace, and mercy.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to talk about the blood moons. A lot of people know about them, but they don't know why we're having them.
The blood moons. I don't even know what you're talking about. What's a blood moon?
It's where the moon turns into blood.
Yeah.
We had one last year or the year before.
Oh, where it turns kind of a reddish color?
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 3 of them.
3 of them when?
Next year we're going to have another one, and in 2016 we're going to have the final one on Passover.
So what causes those?
It's a sign from Jesus that the first blood moon was before Christ, was all the innocent blood that was shed before Christ, and the second one is after Christ's crucifixion, and like abortion and Germany and all that. And then the third one is going to be all the innocent blood shed in the final, in the end days.
Now, do you know, John, what astronomical processes are responsible for the moon turning that color?
No, I just studied the Bible.
All right, John. Listen, I appreciate that. And Peter talks about the last days, the final days, the days of the Lord, the moon will be turned to blood. And he's probably talking about what John is talking about, where not literally the moon becoming blood, but turning the color of blood, turning a red color. And God says, look, those things are set for you for a sign. So pay attention to those because there's a significance attached to them. All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Let's go to Gary in Oklahoma. Gary, welcome to Focal Point. We can grab Gary. Welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Brian. I was just calling on the immigration. I just want to make a comment about the amnesty part of that.
Yes, sir.
My wife and I have been through, she's immigrating to the United States. We've been through a 3-year process, and I'm going to say if we give this freely to someone that's committed a crime, this is just a slap in the face to people who went through this process. We've been stonewalled on several different things and continually asked for more information. We finally got through the process. The stonewalling and disrespect that we've received through the particular embassy that we were going through was just unbelievable. And then to turn around and say we're going to give 12 million illegal people, criminals, amnesty, to me, that is just, that is a slap in the face to the people that go through this.
Absolutely. It's an absolute insult to the rule of law. It's an absolute insult to people that believe in playing by the rules and following the rule of law. Well, Gary, I cannot imagine how frustrating it must be for you to be in that situation. I've had friends, back in 2007, 2008, they were asking me, how can I become an illegal alien? They were trying to legally immigrate. They're running into the same hassles you're running into: paperwork, bureaucracy, fees, delays, slowdowns, obstruction. And they say, look, how can I become an illegal alien? I'm already here. If I can become an illegal, I can be guaranteed I'll never have to leave for the rest of my life. My friends are living in another country now because they never could get their immigration status here in the United States. Extremely, extremely aggravating. And it's wrong. It's just flat wrong. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 5.